Welcome to Rauta. I am Jerry and this is opinion video coming straight from Finland. Some people are still thinking this is coming from places like Russia or Baltic countries, but no, Finland we are, and this time I'm gonna talk you about gatekeepers, gatekeeping in general. I mean, it's a topic kind of ages old where people keep pitching about it. It's like, hey, why do we need those gatekeepers? God damn, it's so hard to pronounce. Not really. My point here is people keep bitching about it. Do we need those people? Do we need this? Why is this and that happening and all the time? And I'm like, this is extreme metal. What do you expect? Of course, there's going to be a certain level of elitism, snobbery, and people telling what to do, what not to do, etc. I mean, this goes worse, or worse, actually better in most terms, when we're talking about extreme metal, where people are more, say, passionate, devoted, focused on what's happening and what's not. Now, in general, we could also talk about metal music being somewhat in kind of a requiring, needing a certain level of gatekeeping. Why so? Now people are asking, it's music, why can't we be left alone? First of all, fuck your feelings, fuck you for being wanted to be left alone. We're talking about here important things, and those indeed require great gatekeeping. Why so? Well, first of all, if people were giving full liberty to do whatever they want all the time, we would be in anarchy, chaos, and all that stuff. Now, some people are now saying, actually, I would like to that, but then again, you wouldn't, unless you are alpha male or alpha female, doesn't matter, alpha person, doesn't matter. But it's not like that is going to happen unless you're rich, famous, fit, fast, I don't know, whatever requirements there is. So we need to have things in check. How is this relevant to music now, you're asking? This guy is just mumbling about this and that and rambling on and on and on. I'll try to explain why music and gatekeeping are indeed kind of a necessarily going hand in hand. Goes into two factors. First of all, is nobody taking care of for you what to listen, how to find quality on the stuff. You would be probably already going full HD into the suicide things. Why so? Because you would be listening to a lot of crappy music instead of the good stuff, instead of the stuff that makes you want to buy tickets to a festival or gig, or, I don't know, physical products, merchandise, what have you. So the thing here is, instead of seeing gatekeepers as your enemy, you should see them as friends, or at the very least, a good guidance. And I'm gonna tell you 3 important facts or steps that you need to consider why it is so relevant. But before we get to those 3 steps that pretty much fail you or are not here to help you out, we should probably explain why gatekeeping, as you are calling it, is necessarily a mandatory thing, or at least a good thing to have. First of all, like I said, if there is nobody to separate the shit from the chaff, or whatever you're gonna call it, let's put it this way, good stuff and the bad stuff, then you would be just lost at sea, and you would be like wondering random amounts of random bullshit and all that stuff, that random stuff, would you probably just end your miserable life figuring out, I don't even like music, I don't like podcasts, I don't like movies, video games, whatever, I don't even like people. Now the thing here is, the first lesson you need to learn, to understand at the very least, is to understand what is good, what is the quality stuff. That doesn't really matter whether we're talking about music, beers, movies, fast cars and all that stuff. You need to understand that not everything is equal. That might be a nice thing to have, like if all the music, all the albums were good, if all the whatever things were good and equal, it would be great. It would be fucking fantastic if you could just listen hundreds of millions of good songs all the time. But the reality is, most music is not really that good. I mean, not really that good that you're willing to spend your precious money on it. You want the quality stuff, not the kind of okay, but not really kind of stuff. So what happens is that you end up probably following algorithms. You probably use a streaming service, and the streaming service is going to suggest you something based on what have you listened before, but it doesn't really know what are the details, what you like and what you don't. For example, vocalists. You might like certain black metal band or doom metal band, and you like that particular vocalist. But if one of those things, like the vocalist, changes, it is totally different thing. The algorithm doesn't understand that. Now, obviously, over the years and over the listening times, it will figure out, okay, this guy likes Dogthrone and Burzum. He likes Emperor. He must be liking Norwegian black metal. Let's give him a little bit more than that. In that sense, algorithm kind of works. And that is kind of like, the basic thing you get to figure out, because if only things work like perfectly, you get to do. Now we're talking already about gatekeeping. This gatekeeping is not something you have to follow, but it's kind of a good guideline. I mean, if there you follow certain movie recommendations, you like action movie 1, B, C, whatever, like tens and tens, dozens and dozens of action movies. The algorithm is figuring like, okay, this person might be into action movies, not so much these dramatic talking heads kind of stuff. That's how gatekeeping works. Now, of course, you're free to follow whatever you're willing to do. I mean, you can just instead figure out what your friends are recommending to you, or read reviews, listen to reviews, or whatever. Or just randomly select names because they sound cool, fun, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that if you can really follow your instinct in a way that it's rewarding. But I don't know about you. Me going pretty much more or less randomly through review albums based on what I'm getting sent and all that stuff. And I must say, unfortunately, there are certain patterns which are not really that rewarding. Sometimes I think, why I'm even doing reviews? And then it kind of clicks with me because I want to find the next good shit. And probably a lot of those good shit nobody would have recommended to me, because, you know, people just go too much with algorithms, which are not really based on quality, but just like, because you like A and B, you kind of like C. There's a logic behind that, but that logic has very, very little to do with quality. So how you quantify, how you figure out what is quality. Quantify might not be the right word, but you get my meaning. You really need to kind of understand what you like, instead of like not just what is similar. Similarity and quality don't often mean the same thing. I mean, say you like certain kind of noodles, so you figure out maybe I should probably eat ramen too. And ramen, noodles, whatever, they are quite close to spaghetti. You end up eating spaghetti because it's similar. Doesn't mean it tastes like that. Of course not. But it's made from the grain. Maybe different kind, maybe different procedures and all that stuff. Now you're eating bread. Nothing wrong with eating bread if you like it, but my point here is the similarities end up that it's made of grain rather than, rice or, God forbid, meat. My point here is, if you only go with the lower common denominator, you end up following a weird track, which is probably has nothing to do with quality so much as similarity. You pick certain same things like, hey, this band has a male vocalist. Maybe I should listen to all the bands with a male vocalist. That's logical, right? Yes. I mean, you're gonna like them all just because they have male vocalists. Well, let's, long-haired male vocalist. So you go from Burzum to, Iron Maiden. Well, they're both good bands, but nothing really similar. So my point here is, that's where the gatekeepers I can do a little bit voluntary job for you to help you out, figure out what to listen, what not, and maybe give you some indicators and all that stuff. So it starts to make sense. You're kind of like, okay, actually this guy making me 30 years know something about something. This review guy who has been listening to and reading albums 20 years maybe knows something about something. This is not so much to say something about me. I'm just saying there's a reason why certain reviewers, for example, prefer certain styles. So if you follow this black metal reviewer instead of this power metal reviewer and you're a black metal fan, it makes sense, right? So there might be a little bit sensibility, some kind of reasoning behind this gatekeeping procedure. So all I'm saying here, logical patterns are sometimes really good, but if the logical steps are not exactly the same things that you want to follow, once again, similarity versus, quality, it gets complicated. Now, as I was mentioning, there are 3 steps that, in my opinion, kind of made things bad for the audience and kind of made gatekeepers even more important. Nowadays, people tend to say, you don't really need gatekeeping because you can just get these algorithms from the internet. You can read all the Facebook groups or whatever to find more music, which might be similar to your thing. Now, I follow certain, for example, Facebook groups in terms of extreme metal and all that stuff. And a lot of people are saying weird recommendations. Just because, say, I like Old Doctrine or Battery, they drop names which are black metal, technically speaking, but something really, really different, something way less quality. I know, like, these recommendations are really not helping. So my point here is there are three things which kind of made music a little bit worse, step by step, and we're not there yet, but let's follow. First of all, no studio. When bands figured out they don't really need to enter a studio in order to record an album, that was first step to misfortune. Why so? Because back in the days when you had a band and you wanted to record an album, you probably needed a record label in a way to help you out with the cost, which means you went for a studio and blah blah blah. But even without record label, you could enter a studio and you could just spend enough money to make your mediocre riffs sound powerful, good, heavy, all that stuff. And in essence, your demo tracks which were like a little bit so-so suddenly became a lot better because you actually made them sound good. Now when people started like, hey, I can actually record on my home studio. Well, you had laptops, you had mics and all that stuff. And now you can pretty much do it with, I don't know, smartphones. That step down is like, okay, the quality of production and all that stuff, it's going down the drain. Because studio is never just about equipment. It's as much equally about skill. The man or woman behind the knobs and buttons and all that stuff is like, maybe add a little bit this, let's like a little bit less of this and that, and then it makes sound better. That's exactly how equipment works, from amplifiers to distortion pedals to whatever you have in studio. These all the equipment, all the gear, all the knowledge how to add this and that or remove something, less this, more that, blah blah blah, it makes sense. So removing studio out of the equation was one of the first step into worse quality. The other thing is self-releasing. Don't get me wrong, obviously there are plenty of good albums released and all that stuff, but most of them not so much. And the thing is here, before anything else really happened, you wanted to put your music out. There was this label to say like, okay, you're not there yet, we're gonna not release it, just mature a little bit, come back with better songs and we'll see about it. So the labels acted kind of like, some kind of a gatekeeping company. If they said, yes, green light, you're good to go, your music didn't suck too much. At least it was approved by someone running the label, ready to put some money on it, to print the CDs, vinyl, tapes, all that stuff. Nowadays, when you just can upload your music on Bandcamp, YouTube, whatever, and you're like, we already have an album out. How did you record it? With my iPhone. Okay, how did you release it? A vinyl CD available? No, it's just a digital copy. You can download it from my Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, whatever drive. And I'm like, okay, so does that really count as an album? Duh, of course it does. I mean, we put so much effort during those 3 hours on Saturday morning after having our coffee that we literally made the album within 3 albums, recorded everything from vocals to drum machine, which are actually pre-recorded, random generated stuff, blah, 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 and there's an album. And you're like, that really doesn't sound much of an effort. So are you sure you honed and polished and figured out everything before you released it? Like, duh, nobody has the time for that. And you're like, yeah, well, it's gonna suck anyway. Third thing is AI. Now, I'm not going to bitch about how AI is going to destroy everything, but we all know that AI is, or artificial intelligence, is not able to, really create something new. It just regenerates, not regenerate, but generate things out of what it's already been done. So it takes a little bit Metallica from there, a little bit Iron Maiden from there, a little bit Judas Priest, so far so good, and just like starts, like creating butter dough, well, butter, bread dough, whatever. Anyway, it's just taking ingredients and like, okay, this is how it's supposed to sound. Now you have a heavy metal album, like, god damn, I know this riff from someplace. This kind of sounds good, but there's nothing original, nothing out of like blue right there. It's just something that you could have took elements from this and that and made it on your own. Now, when you don't have to put even your recording or playing skills into the play. You don't really need a studio for that. You don't need and even create lyrics because you just can randomly generate them, even the cover art, and then you just, I don't know, upload it in one of those services. There you have an album. Now, where the gatekeeping is really needed is separate the chaff from the good stuff. Like saying don't waste your time on this random generated music because it's not really good. Because the more the days go by, the more music there will be, and lots of it will be shit. So instead of listening to, I don't know, 1,000 releases to figure out a few really good ones which you're ready to buy, do you really have the time for that? Or can you outsource it to someone who is anyway doing that? Reviewers or, I don't know, labels who get to just listen to this stuff here. My point here is now gatekeeping is more required, more needed than any time else before these days. Why so? Because of the reasons given. I think music is gonna get even more diluted. Of course, eventually the quality might come up because the more competition and all that stuff, well, the people kind of have to do the same thing in sports. In order to be successful, you really have to beat your opponent. And that's how it goes. But because there is no kind of a limitation how many albums you can actually upload on those countless cloud-based drives, there is no really restriction okay, you can create only 10 songs and that's it. It's more like, how about I create 1 million songs? How about I create another 1 million songs with AI when I'm not doing my handiwork on with my own music? And that's how it goes. I'm saying we're gonna see a lot of music which has no content, no substance, no interesting things to listen to the more we go on. And that's where gatekeepers are important. For example, Metal Archives recently, I think it was the end of the April, they recently announced that they're not gonna accept AI generated music submissions. So that is, if I just decided to create an album with AI and I would just submit my new band hey, this is Jerry's Rauta heavy metal band and blah blah blah, and all that stuff, there would be, nope, it's not created by a person, it's created by AI, there's nothing really man-made, created, all that stuff, it's just AI generated music, and they would say, piss off. And I think this is a good way to do a certain level of basic grassroots gatekeeping. They're gonna keep out the AI generated music because it's not really created, it's not a creation, it's not art, it's just AI generated stuff. And you really didn't need a budget for that. You didn't really need to enter a studio or whatever, because it's just some computers over there in a big machine halls are creating this music, generating. And I think that's one of the gatekeeper things we really need to require. I know a lot of people are gonna disagree with me. They say who cares? Already people are creating so much bad music. But the thing here is, the more and more this meaningless crap we have, the harder it is to find those gems and pearls and diamonds and nuggets of gold versus when you had something like 1,000 metal bands in the world. You could just instantly listen to it all and figure out the good stuff. But what about when there's 500,000 AI generated bands out there with thousands and thousands of creations by them? Yeah, it's get hard. And nobody's stopping from them to be uploaded. So good luck finding the next good band. Does it mean you actually have to go to the gigs and festivals to figure out what are actually the ones playing live versus which are just random generated music online? Probably. But that at least where the reviewers and the labels are going to help you just by gatekeeping. Now I'm looking forward to your comments about this. What do you think about gatekeeping? Is it bad by definition? Is it good? Can it be helpful? Can it be the other way around? What do you think AI generated music? What do you think about studio-free, label-free music creation with man or without a man, with AI or without AI? Let me know and we can discuss it further with the next opinion video coming on Rauta. Now off you go, off I go to the gym and shit. Check it out and take care and all. Bye bye.